Hello, welcome to the first module of Communication 400. In this module, we'll be talking about some of the basics of communication research and how communication is defined. Why should you take a communication research methods course? We'll discuss some of the definitions of communication. So probably many of the courses that you've had already, you've discussed definitions of communication, but we'll get more specific as it applies to different research approaches. We'll look at the relationship between theory and method, and this is something you maybe discussed in the theory course, and now we're going to talk about how we use method to test theory or to develop theory, and specifically looking at the inductive versus deductive approaches. And we'll talk about the difference between method and methodology in some of the readings in this module. One of the most important things that we're going to be discussing in this module is the different paradigms, and these are the different lenses or pair of glasses that you might use, points of view that determine your approach to conducting research in communication studies. So this really determines the paradigm that you might associate yourself with, determines how you would collect data and the types of research questions that you would propose. One of the first paradigms that we'll be discussing is the social scientific or positivist paradigm. This is comes from the social sciences, so psychology, sociology, criminal justice are disciplines that are also associated with the social scientific or positivist paradigm. We'll be discussing the steps of taking this approach, which tends to be associated with quantitative research methods. We'll also be discussing hypotheses, so what makes a good hypothesis, what are the different characteristics of a hypothesis, and then we'll also be discussing the nature of reality from the social scientific perspective. So given this perspective, how is it that you as a researcher see reality, and what's the best approach for finding that reality given your perspective, and we'll talk about how you would evaluate claims and explanations from a positivist perspective. Then the second paradigm that we're going to be discussing is the interpretivist paradigm. This is often associated with with qualitative researchers. Sometimes this is referred to as the naturalistic paradigm. So we'll talk about the role of subjectivity from this perspective. So one of the things to keep in mind with the interpretivist paradigm is that often researchers think of themselves as the tool of data collection. So whereas a positivist might use a survey instrument as the tool for data collection, the interpretivist will use him or herself to conduct interviews or observations. And so how does the subjectivity of the researcher come to play in this perspective? And then we'll also talk about, through the readings, the role of hermeneutics, phenomenology, and symbolic interactionism from the interpretivist perspective. Then the third paradigm that we'll be discussing and that you'll hear about throughout the course is the critical paradigm. So this paradigm really looks at the different power structures and influences of power, and how people, given their position in society, have power or maybe don't have power, and how is it that as a communication researcher we can study those different social interactions from a critical perspective. So Marxism, postmodernism, queer theory, feminist theory are all theories that might be associated with or are associated with the critical paradigm. So some of your tasks associated with this first module are to read chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then portions of chapter 13 and 14 that are relevant to the content of this module, and you'll see that in the syllabus. Review each of the lessons in the module that you'll find in Blackboard. Complete and upload your self-introduction. Complete quizzes 1 through 4. Post the comments to the voice thread for this module, and then also post to the module blog. All those instructions are in Blackboard, so if you do have any questions, feel free to use the classroom questions discussion forum so everybody can see the question that you have, or you can always email me directly if you have some questions.